Hello again. The Geffrey Museum in London's East End is dedicated to the domestic history of that part of the city. It contains a series of recreated rooms showing how London homes have changed over the centuries. During the Black Lives Matter disturbances in 2020, fuss was made about the name of the museum, and Diane Abbott, who else, led campaign to have the place renamed because Robert Geffrey, who founded the almshouses in which the museum is situated, profited from the slave trade. It was renamed as the Museum of the Home, although I'm bound to say people that visit it still refer to it as the Geffrey Museum. Only white people ever visited that museum, part that is from organised school trips. It was fascinating to see how homes had changed over the years. Starting in the 17th century, you could see the homes lit first by candles, then oil lamps, gas, and electricity. Representing the 20th century, there were recreations of living rooms from 1910, the 1930s, and the 1960s, all of which I found fascinating. The 1930s home reminded me very much of my grandparents' house. And the 1960s living room really brought back memories of my own youth. Of course, after the Black Lives Matter business, it was realised that all the interiors were of homes lived in by white families. Heterosexual, white, English, Christian families, in fact. This was, of course, because for over 1,000 years such people made up 99% of the population of London. Racked with guilt about the fact that homosexuals and immigrants were not represented in the museum, it was decided that the history of straight white Christian English people should simply be removed. It's as straightforward as that. It wasn't wanted anymore. The new and improved galleries open today, and instead of the homes of ordinary Londoners over the last few centuries, including the rooms which I have described, typical of the 20th century, we now have the following. The home of a family of Vietnamese immigrants in 2024, a flat lived in by some homosexuals in 2005, a West Indian immigrants' home in 1978, the home of Irish immigrants in 1956, and the home of Jewish immigrants in 1913. In other words, the lives of the vast majority of EastEnders during the 20th century been entirely erased, and only the homes of immigrants are now on display. In the description to this video, I give a link to the museum's website so that viewers can check this for themselves. Don't take my word for it, have a look. The next home in the series, one of the late 19th century, shows, and I quote, a townhouse in 1878. And Aya Bunu is packing up her things in this terraced house in Oakfield Street in Chelsea. Ayahs were Indian nurses, and so this room too is the story of an immigrant. You must go back to the room of 1830 before you find an interior which does not focus on immigrants. The explanation for this state of affairs, the erasure of the history of ordinary Londoners in other words, reads as follows on the museum website. Travel through time as you discover homes, personal stories and objects reflecting the lived experiences of our East London community. And right there you have it, because that phrase lived experience is taken straight from critical race theory. Of course, straight white Christian English people also have lived experiences, but really, in this context, the expression is used only to refer to black people and immigrants. In this particular case, it means that a museum, which is only ever visited by white people, almost all of them British, now shows nothing at all of their lives over the last 200 years. A quick look around the website also reveals something dreary and all too predictable. Every year the rooms at the Geffrey Museum were decorated for Christmas, and you could see the changing style of decorations. Boughs of yew and sprigs of holly in the 17th century, through to paper chains of the 1960s. Now the Christmas festivities have been renamed the Winter Festival because, of course, we have to think about Hanukkah and Diwali as well. As it becomes less relevant to the people who actually visit it, that is to say, heterosexual white British people of Christian heritage, so they are likely to lose interest and stop visiting. The museum has embarked upon a death spiral, and I can already see the beginning of the end.